Dave Pearson always imagined a simple life, blending family closeness with the fulfillment of running a business. After his military service, he launched a company in suburban Philadelphia, believing hard work would lead to success. Though dedicated to his work, his devotion to family, his wife Linda, daughter Allie, and loyal employees was even stronger. Over time, he built a thriving business that felt like an extended family, with employees who became close beyond the office walls. The company thrived through teamwork, and Dave took pride not just in the growing revenue, but in the strong sense of community he had built. Employees celebrated, mourned, and supported each other, forming bonds that brought Dave immense satisfaction. One Friday night, Dave stood content in his quiet office, feeling proud of the 33 employees and the seamless teamwork, especially with his wife, Linda, handling finances and his brother Rich in sales. He had no idea that this happiness wouldn't last. His thoughts were interrupted by his office manager, Hannah, who asked if he needed anything for the next day's pork roast. Dave smiled and jokingly asked why she was calling him boss when she really ran the place. Hannah grinned, agreeing that she did, then asked again if he needed anything. Dave told her Linda had it all covered. Spotting Linda nearby, Dave called out to her. She teased him, asking if he meant her. Dave playfully replied, asking who else he would be talking about, making everyone laugh. He explained that he and Hannah were debating who the real boss was. Linda smirked, saying everyone knew Hannah ran the place. Hannah added that Linda wore the pants at home. Dave chuckled, deciding not to answer that, and Linda quipped that it was better when neither of them wore pants, causing laughter all around. Dave expressed his happiness that they were still in their honeymoon phase after 17 years. Hannah then asked if anything was needed for the next day. Linda confirmed that everything was set and asked how many people were coming. Hannah reported 28 employees, 26 family members, and 31 kids. Linda assured them there would be enough food. She then asked Hannah if she was bringing anyone. Hannah smiled, but said she was on her own. Linda offered to introduce her to someone, but Hannah, more seriously, asked her not to. Dave stepped in, telling Linda to leave Hannah be, assuring her that Hannah was fine. Linda apologized, saying her suggestion came from a place of love. Hannah acknowledged this, but kept her thoughts to herself. Later, as Dave and Linda walked to the car, planning their usual Friday night, Dave asked if Linda had made the reservation. She confirmed, listing the dishes she had ordered: Mongolian beef for Dave, General Tso's chicken for Allie, and a seafood platter for herself. As they drove home, Linda noticed Dave had grown quiet and asked if something was wrong. Dave hesitated before admitting that while life was great, he was starting to realize how quickly Allie was growing up. Soon, it would just be the two of them, as Allie would start having her own date nights and eventually go to college. Linda reassured him that Allie would always be their little girl, but Dave sighed, acknowledging the reality that kids grow up, even if he didn't like it. Linda, trying to lift his spirits, suggested turning their Friday nights into Chinese movie nights, just the two of them. Dave smiled at the idea, feeling a bit better. Dave and Linda entered the house, where their daughter Allie rushed to hug her father, beaming with excitement. Their dog Banjo barked joyfully and sniffed the dropped bags of food. Allie excitedly announced that she had received an A on her geometry exam. Dave grinned and reminded her that he had told her it would be okay. Allie admitted she hadn't believed him, but kissed his cheek in appreciation. Linda watched proudly, noting Allie's strong bond with her father, just as she had with her own late father. During dinner, they engaged in lively conversation, and afterward they moved to the family room. Dave, settling in, asked whose turn it was to pick the movie. Allie quickly claimed it and chose Robin Hood, Men in Tights *, an older comedy Dave had mentioned. Dave chuckled, joking about the film being old, and expressed surprise that she hadn't picked the next John Wick movie. Linda intervened, declaring that there would be no more action movies for the night. Allie laughed, recalling that she lost count of the bodies in the previous film after 100, but assured them that tonight's movie would be fun. They settled on the couch, Dave in the middle, with Allie and Linda on either side. As they relaxed, Dave was struck by how quickly Allie was growing up, the thought of her eventual departure filling him with unease. The next morning, Dave's brother Rich and his wife Sonia arrived early to help with preparations for the big gathering. While Sonia and Allie worked inside, Dave, Linda, and Rich took care of the outdoor tasks. As Dave cleaned the pool, he felt a familiar rumbling and headed inside, calling out to Linda that he needed to use the bathroom. Linda jokingly warned him not to stink up the guest powder room, which Allie had just cleaned. Dave chose to use the basement bathroom instead, appreciating the quiet, dark space where his mind could wander. As he settled in, he overheard a conversation outside the small window and recognized Linda's voice, speaking anxiously to Rich. She expressed concern that Dave might catch them, but Rich reassured her that he was busy. Dave's heart sank as he listened, dread building with each word. Linda mentioned that their boys had brought home forms for a DNA test, and asked if Allie's school had done the same. Rich replied that he wasn't aware of it. Then Rich asked the question that hit Dave like a cannonball: whether Linda had ever found out if he was Allie's father. Linda admitted she had been avoiding it, but would check with the school. Rich hesitated, then asked if they should stop their affair, acknowledging the risk. Linda firmly refused, stating that they had gotten away with it for years and didn't want Dave to find out, as it would ruin them both. Rich suggested he might start fresh, but Linda angrily called him a prick and confirmed their next meeting on Tuesday at 6 o'clock at Valley View. They then parted ways, leaving Dave in stunned silence, his world collapsing around him. Dave closed the window, feeling sick. Tears flowed as he whispered, "What am I going to do?" The pain was unbearable, but he knew he couldn't confront them now with a house full of guests expected soon. He had to act normal, even though his heart was shattered. After almost 20 minutes in the basement, Dave knew he had to come out. "What can I do?" he thought frantically. "Ice," he whispered. Going out for ice would give him time to compose himself. He splashed water on his face, trying to hide his distress, and went upstairs, determined to act normal. Seeing Sonia, he said, "Tell Linda I'm getting ice." "Sure," she replied, unaware of the turmoil he was in. At the store, Dave took a few minutes to walk and think. Walking usually cleared his mind, but this time tears welled up. Frustrated, he shouted, "Stop it!" He wasn't used to being emotional, and it made him angry. He needed to stay in control and come up with a plan to get through the party and the days ahead without anyone noticing. The walk calmed him a bit, and he began to form a strategy. Realizing he'd been gone too long, he bought 8 bags of ice and headed home, bracing himself for what lay ahead. Allie greeted him first, noticing his distress. She asked what was wrong, and Dave quickly lied, saying his stomach was upset and he had to pull over. He asked her to move the ice to the freezer, explaining he needed to lie down. Concerned, Allie agreed and said she'd tell Linda. Dave hoped a few hours alone would help him regain control. When Linda checked on him, he told her he had stomach cramps and vomiting, but no fever. She sympathized and told him to rest, saying everyone would understand if he didn't join the party. Left alone, Dave paced and planned. He concluded that divorce was inevitable and both Rich and Linda would be fired. He thought about the financial impact and the effect on Sonia, the boys, and his parents. But his biggest worry was Allie. He feared losing her regardless of her biological relation. As he tried to hold it together, Allie came upstairs. Dave pretended to sleep, feeling her gently touch his hair. She asked if he was okay, and he softly said he needed to rest before the guests arrived. Their dog, Banjo, jumped onto the bed and licked his face, unknowingly wiping away his tears. Allie smiled, saying she had brought him a friend, and that she loved him. She kissed his forehead, and in that moment, Dave felt her love and knew he had made the right decision. He realized Allie needed to know the truth before the confrontation, though he hated that it was necessary. Dave wondered what Linda and Rich were thinking, finding their betrayal incomprehensible. He knew he would soon expose their treachery, destroying the perfect life he once had. Bitterness filled him as he thought, damn them. Despite everything, Dave managed to be sociable with the guests. Linda and Rich were too busy to interact with him, which was a relief. Hannah noticed something was off but said nothing. Dave kept Allie close, drawing strength from her presence. She assumed his need for closeness was due to his supposed illness, helping him maintain his cover. After helping with the cleaning, Dave announced he was heading to bed early, choosing the guest room as an excuse, which Linda accepted. He felt satisfied that his plan for the first night had worked. The next morning, the family attended church together. During the service, Dave pretended to receive a text, catching Linda's attention. She gave him a questioning look, but he whispered, "Later." After the service, Linda asked about the message. Dave told her the owner of Gupta Water Equipment needed him for a Monday meeting, and he'd be back by Tuesday. When Linda asked where, Dave answered, "Pittsburgh." He added he'd leave that afternoon to get enough rest. Linda then asked if they were still going to his parents' house for lunch. Dave confirmed but mentioned he would drive separately so Linda and Allie could stay longer. Dave felt satisfied with how things were unfolding. He successfully avoided Rich during brunch, and Linda was too preoccupied to notice his emotional distance. After lunch, Dave left, stopped by the house to grab paperwork, and checked into a hotel near their business. He then called his attorney, Bill, who was also a close friend. Dave explained the situation to Bill, who had gone through a similar divorce. Although Bill wasn't a family lawyer, he recommended his colleague Angela, who specialized in such cases. Bill called Angela, and she agreed to meet them for dinner. During dinner, Dave learned that Bill and Angela were engaged. They spent the evening discussing strategy, and Angela scheduled a Monday meeting to finalize the details. It seemed Dave would be ready to serve Linda with divorce papers by Friday. At one point, Dave stepped out to call home, pretending he was already in Pittsburgh. Linda answered, asking how he was feeling. Dave said he was a bit tired, but okay, then asked if Allie was there. Linda confirmed she was watching TV next to her. Dave asked to be put on speakerphone, and Allie excitedly told him she missed him. Dave reassured her that he'd be home for their date on Tuesday, and Allie brightened, saying she would pick a movie for them. After saying their goodbyes, Linda felt a little hurt by the brief conversation, but assumed Dave was just exhausted from the long drive. Dave opened the hotel window, hoping for fresh air, but was hit with dumpster odors. Just perfect, he thought, reflecting on the mess his life had become. He shut the window and spent the night wrestling with his thoughts. The next day, the meeting with Bill and Angela went well. That evening, Dave made another brief call home, claiming he was having dinner with clients. In reality, he was strategizing alone in his hotel room, dreading the next day when he would have to explain everything to Allie. He knew it would force her to grow up too fast. A conversation he dreaded with all his heart. Tuesday morning, Dave finalized his strategy, meeting with his attorney to settle company-related issues and the severance packages for Linda and Rich. After lunch, he arrived at the office, pretending he had just returned from Pittsburgh. Seeing Hannah stirred emotions he thought he had under control. Instead of heading straight to his office, he awkwardly smiled and then shut the door behind him. "Get a grip," he muttered to himself. He reviewed his plans, took a deep breath, and called Hannah into his office. "Hi, Dave," she greeted him, but her smile quickly faded when she saw his tear-streaked face. Ignoring office etiquette, she rushed to hug him. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "No," he replied shakily. "I'm not sick, but something's really messed up." Hannah pulled up a chair, holding his hand. "What's going on? Is it Linda?" she asked, seeing the pain in his eyes. He nodded, struggling to speak. "Rich," he finally whispered. "Your brother?" she asked in shock. She paced the room, fuming before calming down to hug Dave again. "You found out before the party, didn't you?" Dave nodded, explaining how he overheard their conversation and realized the truth. "There's no chance you'll stay with her?" Hannah asked. "They've been involved for 16 years. I can't get over it." Hannah poured them both a rum and coke. After a few sips, they shifted to business. "Rich and Linda will be fired after Friday. I want Sonia to take over Linda's job, but I'll need you to cover her duties temporarily." "I can handle it," Hannah assured him. "For sales, I'm considering promoting Debbie Gleason. She's shown interest, and I think she'd do well." "I agree," Hannah said. "Tammy Fields could replace Debbie." "Good. On Friday, let them know we'll meet Monday to discuss their promotions. Could you also draft job descriptions before then?" "Of course. Anything else?" Tears welled up in Dave's eyes. "You're one of my closest friends, and I'm losing Linda, my best friend. I may need to lean on you more." Hannah hugged him tightly. "It's my privilege." After leaving the office, Hannah felt deeply for Dave, knowing he didn't deserve such pain. The next morning, Linda paced the kitchen, tormented by her choices. She hadn't been with Rich in nearly a year and wondered why she ever got involved with him. Determined to end it for good, she convinced herself that Rich wouldn't tell Dave because he had too much to lose. As she was deep in thought, Dave walked in, and she threw herself into his arms, kissing him. Surprised, Dave asked what brought on the affection. Linda said she loved him and missed him since the picnic. Dave, lying, said he missed her too, while wondering how she'd react if he asked about Rich. When Linda asked about his plans with Allie, Dave mentioned taking her to Vincent's for Italian and a movie. Linda asked if he had plans that night. When Dave inquired why, she flinched slightly and replied she was going shopping at the mall. Dave teased her about window shopping, and Linda forced a smile, saying she might see if anything caught her eye. Dave added, "Shop safely," and immediately regretted it when Linda questioned his meaning. He brushed it off as a joke, noticing her unease. Fortunately, Allie came downstairs, breaking the tension. Allie greeted Dave with excitement, and they discussed their plans. As they left, Linda felt a mix of pride, love, guilt, and remorse, deciding that tonight would be the last time with Rich. After waiting 20 minutes, she grabbed her keys and headed out to meet him. As Dave and Allie drove away, anxiety gripped him. He took deep breaths and, holding Allie's hand, apologized for the change in their plans. Allie, concerned, asked why. Dave explained they wouldn't have a fancy dinner or see a movie, but needed to talk and see something important. Allie, worried, asked if it was a secret from her mom. Dave reassured her, asking for patience until they weren't driving. They drove in silence until they reached Chick-fil-A, grabbed food, and then headed to a small office complex near the Valley View Motel. Allie asked why they were there, and Dave hesitated before revealing that Linda was having an affair and would be meeting her lover there soon. Allie, in shock, refused to believe it. Dave sadly confirmed her fears, and as they watched, 2 cars pulled into the motel. Allie saw her mom's car, followed by Uncle Rich getting out and walking into the motel with Linda. Allie and Dave, both devastated, hugged each other as Dave took pictures of the encounter. They watched Linda and Rich embrace and enter a motel room together. Dave apologized to Allie, who, through tears, realized the gravity of the situation. She vowed to stay with her father, rejecting her mother. Dave promised to do everything to keep her with him. Allie, angry, declared that if forced to stay with her mother, she would make her life miserable. Dave knew it wasn't the time to encourage an open mind about her relationship with Linda. He warned Allie that the hardest part was coming, and that they would need to act normal until he confronted Linda on Friday. Allie, overwhelmed, expressed doubt she could do it, but Dave reassured her that they would get through it together. They left the motel to find a quiet place to talk. Dave drove to a secluded picnic area in a nearby park. There, they spent the evening talking, planning, crying, and venting their frustrations. The experience brought them closer than ever, making it feel like it was them against the world. They returned home just after 10 p.m., but Allie wasn't sure how she'd manage to act normal for the next 3 days. "Daddy, I'm not sure I can see her without wanting to slap her," Allie confessed. "Watch your language, honey," Dave gently admonished. "You may not want to hear this, but eventually, you'll need to maintain some kind of relationship with her." "It'll never be the same. I won't respect her," Allie replied bitterly. "Let's stick to the plan for now," Dave suggested. "When we get home, just say you're tired and head straight to bed, okay?" "I can do that," Allie agreed. After a pause, she added, "Daddy, I really love you. I don't know how you're handling this, but I'm here for you." Dave smiled as they pulled into the driveway. "How did I get so lucky to have such an amazing daughter?" he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You're not a slacker, Daddy. You're the best man I know, and the best dad a girl could ask for." They quietly entered the house, relieved to find Linda already in bed. Allie kept her emotions in check while Dave found Linda pretending to sleep. Knowing she'd been with Rich, he was grateful they both avoided any interaction. They lay back to back in bed, each lost in their own painful thoughts, tears silently falling. The next morning, Dave woke up, smelled the coffee, and got dressed for his trip. He checked on Allie, who was ready. In the kitchen, Linda was making pancakes and greeted him cheerfully. Dave hugged her and kissed her neck. At the right moment, Allie entered and greeted her parents. Playing along, Dave asked Allie if she slept well after her date with that hot guy. Allie confirmed and asked Linda if she had asked her yet. Linda looked confused, so Dave explained that he needed to go back to Pittsburgh and that Allie wanted to join him. Linda agreed, saying Allie would make the trip more enjoyable. They quickly finished breakfast and were soon on the road, relieved to be away from home. On the way, Allie asked how she did. Dave assured her she did great, adding that her idea to come along was smart and made acting unnecessary. Allie joked about bad acting, and Dave chuckled. After a pause, Allie asked if Dave had thought about her being there when he confronted Linda. Dave wasn't sure yet, but Allie insisted she wanted to be there, even when he confronted Rich. Dave gently reminded her about her language, and Allie replied that the situation deserved it. Dave, admiring her strength, asked what she would say if she were there. Allie wasn't sure, but said she wanted her mom to know she couldn't hide from her and that she was on Dave's side. They checked into a hotel, and in the elevator, Allie quietly asked when the affair started. Dave said he didn't know exactly, but it was a long time ago. Tears welled up in Allie's eyes as she began to ask a question, but Dave gently interrupted, assuring her that whatever the answer, it wouldn't change anything between them. They walked to their room in silence. Once inside, Allie asked if Dave wanted to know everything. Dave wasn't sure and asked if she did. Allie, with a trembling voice, said she knew who her dad was, but thought it was wise to find out, adding she didn't know if she could handle having two cheating parents. Dave asked gently if she wanted to know, and Allie admitted she did. Dave suggested they wait a few months, explaining he had reasons to hold off for now. Allie hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes, and they began unpacking in silence, finding comfort in each other's presence. During their hotel stay, Dave and Allie kept in touch, especially when Dave met with lawyers or handled business. Allie spent time by the pool swimming or reading. On the first day, Hannah joined them to discuss strategy, and later they had dinner together. Allie and Hannah got along well, and back in the room, Allie opened up to Dave. Allie hesitantly mentioned that Hannah had feelings for him, surprising Dave. When Allie asked if anything had happened between them, Dave was shocked and assured her he had never come close to cheating on her mother. Allie, tearful, apologized for doubting him, and Dave reassured her that her questions were understandable. They both wondered why Linda had been unfaithful, hoping for answers on Friday. The next day, Hannah called Linda to discuss work. She asked about the month-end closing and mentioned that the IT guy needed Linda's laptop for updates and a virus check. Linda confirmed she'd be at the office all day and agreed to have lunch with Hannah, who felt a mix of relief and sadness knowing what was coming on Friday. The next morning, Allie found her father staring out the window, tears in his eyes. When she asked if he was okay, Dave admitted he wasn't and asked if she was ready for a tough day. Allie sighed, acknowledging they had no choice. Dave then asked if she thought he could forgive Linda and stay. Allie admitted she couldn't see her mother the same way after all the lies. They hugged, drawing strength from each other, with Allie expressing gratitude for being included. Dave, touched by Allie's maturity, asked if she was okay with everything. She replied that she was fine as long as he was. They shared a small smile before preparing for the day. After breakfast, they packed up, checked out, and headed to the lawyer's office. Bill and Angela were there, impressed with Allie's composure during the divorce discussions. Allie participated actively, offering good suggestions. Angela remarked on how well Allie was handling the situation, and Allie expressed an interest in law, mentioning it was her favorite TV show genre. Angela encouraged her to consider working with their paralegal team in the future, and Allie was enthusiastic. Watching Allie interact with the lawyers reassured Dave that she was strong enough for what lay ahead. After lunch, Dave and Allie ran errands, returning home around 3:30 p.m. The weight of the impending confrontation hung heavily, and the silence between them added to the tension. Dave laid out the evidence on the dining room table and suggested they play cribbage to pass the time. They had about an hour before everything would change. The sound of the garage door opening signaled the moment had arrived. Allie and Dave sat at the table, no more pretending. Linda walked in with packages, cheerfully announcing, "The Chinese food is here! Let's start the party!" But then she saw their grim faces, and reality hit. "Hey, what's going on?" Linda asked, approaching the table. Dave quietly but firmly said, "Sit down, Linda." She hesitated but sat, noticing the photo from her meeting with Rich. Shocked, she nearly missed the chair, tears filling her eyes as she whispered, "No, no, no." She looked up to see Dave and Allie staring at her with contempt. "Please, Dave, don't do what I deserve," Linda pleaded through tears. Dave paused before asking softly, "What do you think you deserve?" "Please don't leave me," Linda begged. "Don't leave you? Like you threw away our marriage and family?" Dave responded, his voice controlled but bitter. "It was a terrible mistake," she cried out. "How long did this mistake last?" Dave asked sharply. Linda hesitated, unsure how much he knew. "It doesn't matter. One time was too many. Can't we just move past it?" "Are you serious? How long, Linda?" Dave demanded. Finally, Linda admitted, since before he met Sonia. "So about 17 years, Dave said bitterly. "You cheated for 17 years and you think that doesn't matter?" "It matters. It was selfish and hurtful," Linda conceded. Allie, unable to hold back, burst out, Mom, how could you do this? You've ruined Dad and me. Dave stood abruptly, anger boiling over. Who the hell are you, Linda? Allie added angrily. Yeah, let's see, liar, cheater, traitor, and a witch. Linda, overwhelmed, looked to Dave for support. Please, Dave, tell her not to call me names, Linda begged. Dave's response was cold. When she says something untrue, I will. The room fell silent, broken only by Linda's quiet sobs. Finally, Linda asked, What are you going to do? Go to your room, clean yourself up, and calm down. Your crying is just making us angrier. We'll talk before Allie and I leave. But we need to fix this. Where are you going? Linda asked, panic in her voice. That's not your concern, and we won't fix anything in a few hours. Go upstairs, Dave ordered. Linda staggered up the stairs. As planned, Dave sent a message to Linda's sister, Shelley. All set. She'll need you. Be here in 30. Got it, Shelley replied. Linda sat on the bed, sobbing. After a while, she began to think of ways to salvage her family. But then the harsh realization hit her. This would no longer be her bed. She had ruined everything for nothing. Fresh tears flowed as she processed the loss. 20 minutes later, she returned downstairs, still upset but more composed. Dave began bluntly. First, you know you're fired, right? Linda's tears started again. Why? I'm good at my job, she protested. Do you really need to ask? I don't trust you anymore, and I don't want you around Em, Dave responded coldly. Linda lowered her eyes, struggling to control her emotions. What else? Dave handed Linda a stack of papers, explaining they contained the documents she was expecting, along with her severance check and the agreement. He instructed her to open a separate bank account and review the documents, suggesting she hire an attorney. He offered to cover initial costs, but made it clear that if she chose to fight, those expenses would be hers. Trembling, Linda said the situation felt harsh and asked if they could try to fix things. Dave ignored her plea, informing her that Shelley would arrive soon to support her. He suggested she go with Shelley for a while because he wasn't ready to talk. He added that when they were both ready, she could return to stay in the guest room until permanent arrangements were made. Desperation crept into Linda's voice as she asked if she could stay. Dave, losing patience, snapped that he didn't want to see her face for a while, his words cutting deeply. Linda paused before asking if there was really no chance for reconciliation. Dave, with finality, said he didn't see a way out, citing the 17 years she had spent with his brother and how she had destroyed 2 marriages and split 3 families. Linda, almost in disbelief, questioned 3? Dave confirmed, explaining it wasn't just their marriage and Sonia and Rich's, but also his parents, as his brother was now dead to him. The gravity of her actions sank in, and Linda murmured for God's forgiveness. Dave acknowledged that while God might forgive her, maybe he would too, someday. Shelley arrived just then, and Dave hugged her before calling Allie from her room. As he prepared to leave, he briefly glanced at Linda, both seeing the pain in each other's faces, feeling the full weight of their lives being torn apart. The bond of 18 years was now cruelly severed, and it would take time, if ever, to heal. Dave and Allie drove in silence, aware of the plan, but unsure if they were ready. Dave initially thought about savoring the moment, but quickly realized the pain it would cause, especially to his parents, who were already at Sonia and Rich's house for dinner. As they arrived, his heart raced, but Allie squeezed his hand and said, Dad will get through this. Stay close to your grandparents and give them the picture when I give it to Sonia, he reminded her. I've got it, she replied confidently. They entered the house just as dinner ended. Allie hugged her grandparents and Sonia greeted Dave. Hi guys, we weren't expecting you, but there's plenty of food. Dave kissed Sonia's forehead, thanked her, and said they needed to talk. He handed Sonia a photo of Rich and Linda together, while Allie gave the same to their grandparents. The room filled with gasps as everyone processed the images. Dave then handed a copy to Rich and demanded an explanation. Rich turned pale and slumped into a chair. Their father demanded answers. Sonia slapped Rich, cursing him. Dave intervened, urging her to let Rich speak, but Rich stammered, unable to defend himself. He asked where the picture came from, and Dave sharply replied that it was the wrong question, insisting Rich admit the truth. Sonia begged for an explanation, and Dave revealed that Rich and Linda had been having an affair since before Sonia met Rich. Sonia erupted, attacking Rich until she collapsed in tears and ran to the living room, where her mother and Allie comforted her. Their father confronted Rich demanding confirmation, and Rich tearfully admitted the truth. Their father expressed disgust, calling Rich a disgrace for betraying his own brother and wife. Rich tried to apologize, but Dave cut him off, declaring Rich was dead to him and that he didn't want to see him again. He also informed Rich that he was fired and told their father he no longer considered Rich his brother. Their father tried to calm Dave, but Dave was firm, saying that if Rich was around, he would leave, and if it happened too often, their father would have made his choice. Their father sighed, understanding Dave's stance but asking not to be expected to cut Rich off completely. Dave accepted, but warned that the situation wouldn't be easily fixed. Sonia returned, shouting at Rich to get out and pack his things, a command echoed by their father, who told Rich not to think about staying with them. Rich, teary-eyed, glanced at his mother but saw only contempt. As Rich went to gather his things, Dave stopped him, demanding his office keys and instructing him to report to Bill Hardwick on Monday to turn in his company car and receive a severance package. Dave also took Rich's computer bag, which caused Rich to panic. Rich protested, saying he had personal stuff on the computer, but Dave insisted it was company property and that anything personal would be returned on Monday. Desperate, Rich lunged at Dave and threw a punch. Dave retaliated, knocking Rich to the floor. The room erupted in chaos as others tried to intervene, but their father finally calmed Dave down with a bear hug. As they both stood, Rich lay semi-conscious on the floor, defeated. Regaining his composure, Dave apologized to Sonia for springing this on her and asked if they could talk privately over the weekend. Sonia, unsure, agreed. Dave then apologized to his parents, and his mother responded gently, saying they understood and would talk later. Dave agreed, then turned to Allie and asked if she was ready to go home. Allie stood by his side, ready to leave. Before leaving, Dave asked his father if he and his mother would stay to help Sonia and ensure Rich left quietly. His father nodded, assuring him they would handle it. Dave, with resignation, remarked that it was just him and Allie now. His father reassured him that they were still there for him too. Dave and Allie left in silence. While Dave regretted the scene, he felt some relief from venting his anger. However, a more pressing thought soon occupied his mind, and Allie noticed it too. Why was Uncle Rich so protective of his computer bag? What's in there? I'm wondering the same thing, Dave replied. Let's go home and find out. Daddy, are you okay? You seemed out of control, Allie asked, her concern evident. I'm fine, just sore, Dave replied with a forced chuckle. I was worried you might hurt Grandpa when he tried to stop you, Allie admitted. I guess I was more than out of control, huh? Dave said, reflecting on his actions. Definitely, but it probably felt good, Allie said with a small smile. They exchanged a knowing look, both aware of the tension, but also the bond between them. Meanwhile, Rich packed his belongings into suitcases and trash bags, seething that his affair had been exposed and that Dave had taken his computer bag. He made sure to load a lockbox into one of his suitcases, knowing he'd need its contents. Without saying goodbye, he drove north, needing to disappear, unsure of when Dave would uncover all his secrets. Rich's plans were disorganized at best. He aimed to find a small town in Wyoming or Idaho, rent a place with cash, and then ditch his car further west. He considered stealing a vehicle or taking a train or bus to avoid detection. Without access to the files on his computer, he was lost. How did everything go to hell so fast? He muttered angrily, unaware that he'd overlooked two crucial things in his panic. Back home, Dave realized they hadn't eaten, so they grabbed fast food. Returning to an empty house, they felt both relieved and saddened by Linda's absence. After dinner, Dave took Rich's computer bag to his office and began inspecting its contents. Everything seemed normal until he found an envelope from a major client, Brandywater Processes, containing a check made out to Rich's cleaning services for $9,900. Suspecting it was a bribe, Dave muttered to himself about Rich's activities while rifling through the papers. Finding nothing immediately suspicious, he booted up the computer and discovered a hidden file. Recognizing its significance, he immediately called his lawyer friend Bill. Bill asked how things had gone, and Dave, sounding serious, replied that it was as expected, but that he urgently needed help. Dave explained that it was serious and asked Bill to come over, not wanting to leave Allie alone. Bill offered to bring Angela, but Dave said it wasn't necessary, though she was welcome. Bill arrived 25 minutes later. Dave showed him the check and the contents of the hidden file. Bill, examining the evidence, confirmed Dave's suspicions, saying it pointed to bribery, extortion, and possibly tax evasion, which could lead to federal charges. Dave, concerned, asked if the FBI would need to get involved, and Bill confirmed that it was likely and that Rich could face jail time. When Dave asked what to do, Bill said he would contact someone at the FBI, emphasizing the need to act quickly if Rich was unstable. Bill then left a message with his FBI contact and returned to Dave, saying they should meet the agent early in the morning. Bill suggested taking the bag and the check with him in case Rich tried to retrieve them, which Dave agreed was a good idea. As Bill was leaving, he joked about Dave making a habit of after-hours legal services, to which Dave played along, asking what kind of premium Bill had in mind. Bill suggested a bottle of 14-year-old Balvenie single malt, and Dave agreed, smiling for the first time that evening. Before leaving, Bill advised holding off on giving Rich the severance agreement as written to avoid tipping him off about the FBI. Dave suggested adding a delayed payout tied to a reconciliation of expenses, and Bill agreed before departing. Dave had planned to talk with Sonia and his parents on Saturday, but Bill's early morning call changed that. They had a 10 a.m. meeting with FBI agent Steve Majors in Philadelphia. Allie insisted on joining him. After all, they made decisions together. At the meeting, Dave and Bill presented the evidence to Agent Majors, who then called in his supervisor, Jack Sims. After reviewing the documents, Jack rubbed his chin and asked, "We have a spreadsheet of bribes, an unpaid check from the latest one, and details of an offshore account. How much money is in the account?" $785,952, Dave replied. "And all of this money belongs to your company?" Agent Majors asked. "I believe so," Dave confirmed. Rich was allowed to negotiate project prices as long as the margin didn't drop below 23%. It looks like he set prices just above that limit and took bribes in return. "And you have 14 clients who participated? You know they'll also face charges," Agent Majors continued. "Yes," Dave acknowledged. "Do you know where Rich is?" Majors asked. "No," Dave admitted. He was supposed to meet Bill on Monday for severance, but after how he reacted when I took his computer bag and the fact that his family kicked him out, he's probably on the run. Agent Majors picked up on Dave's concerns. "Steve, track his phone," he ordered. After a while, Steve returned. "He's on the move, heading west on Interstate 80 in Ohio. Let's monitor him and aim to arrest him late Sunday," Majors decided. "We'll coordinate with local authorities and hold him for 48 hours without charges, giving us time to prepare formal charges by Monday." On the way home, Dave, Bill, and Allie chatted lightly, though Dave had other concerns, particularly Allie's DNA test. If it showed Rich was her father, Dave had planned to fight for 18 years of child support. But with Rich likely heading to prison, that plan was no longer necessary, and Dave felt a sense of relief. Bill dropped off Dave and Allie, and they then arranged to meet with Sonia and Dave's parents. During the meeting, Dave's mother cried over her youngest son's betrayal, while his father seethed with anger. Sonia, however, was worried about her and her boy's future. "Dave, what am I going to do? How will we manage?" Sonia asked, her voice trembling. Dave outlined a plan. "First, you need a lawyer for the divorce. Use mine, Angela Hall. If Rich goes to jail, you should get the majority of your shared assets. The FBI says the stolen company money will be returned, and I'll need some of it to reorganize. The rest will go into a trust for you and the boys. I know you have a business degree, so I'd be honored if you took over Linda's role at the company. You can work from home and still care for your boys. How does that sound?" Sonia hugged Dave in relief, and his parents also offered their support. Dave smiled at Allie, who was proud of how her dad always looked out for the family. On the way home, Dave brought up the DNA test again. "Babe, have you thought more about the DNA test?" "I've thought about it," Allie replied. "It's hard to decide, but I think we should do it. Are you okay with that?" "I'm not angry, and I agree," Dave reassured her. "I'll get the test kits this week. You know this won't change how much I love you, right?" "I know," Allie said softly. "It won't change how I feel about you either. I just want to know." Dave felt some relief after discussing the DNA test with Allie. Though much work remained, he could see the end of this nightmare approaching. Meanwhile, Rich drove west on Interstate 80 through the night, stopping at a McDonald's for breakfast and to rest just before entering Ohio. Using his iPad, he searched for destinations and decided on Sioux Falls. remote yet large enough to blend in. He booked a cheap furnished room and planned to ditch his car near Fargo, take a bus back, and lay low. "Feeling better?" "Yeah," Rich shouted out loud. "I have a plan." But as he drove, doubts crept in, and he realized how flawed his plan was. Despite the fear, he felt trapped and couldn't turn back now. Thoughts of surrender crossed his mind, but they scared him even more, so he kept going. He thought about his family and the damage he had done. He forced himself to focus on anger, knowing he was now the hunted. Regret had no place. Exhaustion eventually forced him to pull into a Cracker Barrel parking lot for a few hours of sleep. On Sunday morning, he woke up just in time for breakfast, then hit the road again, driving aimlessly as he reflected on his actions. The weight of his choices grew heavier, but he tried to push it aside. By evening, he stopped at a diner near Omaha, still 200 miles from Sioux Falls, where he had a motel reservation. As he approached the diner, two men asked if he was Richard Pearson. He knew it was over. The FBI had caught up with him. On Monday morning, Dave brought donuts, bagels, and coffee for an all-staff meeting. Before that, at 8 a.m., he met with Debbie Gleason and Tammy Fields to announce their promotions. At the meeting, he introduced them as the new sales team. The staff was supportive despite the recent turmoil. After delivering the news, Dave refocused on moving forward with both his business and personal life. The next day, Rich was formally charged with multiple felonies, and the FBI began investigating the clients involved in the bribes. Knowing he would lose some customers, Dave started restructuring the business, planning to spin off part of the manufacturing and develop a new distribution company. He finalized these plans just in time for Linda's return, knowing he would need all his strength to navigate the challenges ahead. That Friday night, Dave and Allie had dinner at their favorite Chinese restaurant, their routine disrupted by Linda's absence. During dinner, Dave received a call from Linda, who wanted to discuss coming home. Dave's cold response made it clear their relationship was strained. He confirmed he had hired a lawyer and ended the call quickly. Allie noticed his tension and offered silent support. Despite the heavy atmosphere, their bond grew stronger as they faced the situation together. The next morning, Allie and Dave were in the living room when Linda walked in. Allie immediately went upstairs without acknowledging her mother. Dave noticed Linda's resentment before returning to his iPad. Linda greeted Dave, but he signaled her to wait. After finishing his game, he set the iPad aside and asked if she had read the papers. Linda confirmed she had, and asked if they could talk about staying together as a family, expressing her fear of everything changing. Dave questioned whether she meant staying married while she continued doing what she wanted. Linda insisted that wasn't her intention, saying they had been a happy family and she couldn't bear the thought of it ending. She promised never to risk it again. Dave, unconvinced, pointed out that she hadn't considered the consequences of her 17-year affair and now wanted to stay together just to avoid the fallout. He accused her of having fun with his brother while he was clueless at home. Linda denied loving Rich, admitting she didn't even like him much, and described him as selfish and terrible in bed. Dave, in disbelief, quietly remarked that she had risked everything for 17 years for a man she didn't even like and never tried to end it. Yet she still couldn't explain why. Linda, sobbing, admitted she didn't know why she had done it, calling it a stupid and selfish mistake. She explained that the first time was a drunken mistake, and after that, Rich threatened to tell Dave if they didn't continue. She acknowledged getting a small thrill from getting away with it, but couldn't fully explain her actions. Dave, now resolute, told Linda they were done. Seeing her sobbing, he softened slightly, offering her time to pull herself together and asking if she wanted water. When she whispered that she did, he handed her a bottle from the fridge. He then told her that when she was ready, they would discuss the paperwork at the table. Upstairs, Allie sat on her bed, listening to her parents argue. She tried not to cry, but hearing their pain, especially her father's, broke her heart. She resolved to build a life with him, while her mother could suffer in her own misery. Dave went to the restroom, letting out tears he didn't want Linda to see. He knew he had to harden himself and distance his emotions. When he came out, he saw Linda slowly walking to the dining room, her puffy face and red eyes showing her sorrow. Dave felt torn between satisfaction at her suffering and a desire to end her pain, so he decided, no more yelling. He apologized for yelling and promised to keep it together. In a barely audible voice, Linda said he could yell, curse, or even hit her if it meant staying together, but she knew it wouldn't happen. Dave confirmed it wouldn't and asked if she had read the papers. Linda softly said she had and acknowledged they were fair, but pleaded not to give up Allie, offering to give up some money instead. Dave firmly refused, explaining that he and Allie had a special bond, and he couldn't lose her too. He pointed out that in a few months, Allie would be 16 and could choose for herself, making it foolish to go against her wishes now. Linda argued that he wouldn't lose Allie and that she needed to heal their relationship, which she couldn't do if Allie wasn't with her. Dave insisted it wouldn't work that way, noting that all Allie felt for her mother was rage, and that living apart would help her process it. He warned that forcing Allie to stay would only make things worse. Linda, frustrated, shouted that she wasn't giving Allie up. Unbeknownst to them, Allie had been listening nearby. She suddenly burst in, screaming at her mother, calling her names, and listing every betrayal. For over 10 minutes, Allie unleashed her anger, confronting Linda whenever she tried to turn away. At one point, Allie grabbed her mother's chin, forcing her to face the fury she had caused. Dave watched, then gently pulled Allie away, comforting her as she calmed down. Linda, shaken and struggling to hold back tears, pleaded with Allie, saying she loved her and needed her with her. Allie, now calmer, firmly replied that it wasn't happening and warned that if she were forced to stay, she would make Linda's life miserable, with Dave not around to stop her. When Linda asked what had happened to calling her mom, Allie coldly responded that everyone wanted to know, adding a harsh insult before returning to her room, satisfied and smiling to herself. Overwhelmed by sadness, Linda realized she couldn't stay in the house during the divorce. Not wanting to rent her own place since she planned to fight for custody and the house, she temporarily moved in with her sister. The divorce case was before Judge Stan Lawson, who had reviewed both petitions and had a clear idea of how it would go. Although he usually recommended counseling, the 17-year affair with the husband's brother made reconciliation unlikely. The main issue was custody of their daughter. While the judge usually favored the mother, Allie was almost old enough to decide for herself. He decided to see how things would play out in court. The session began with Linda's attorney stating that his client didn't want a divorce and requested 12 counseling sessions. The judge, expecting this, dismissed the idea as a waste of time and money. The attorney then raised the issue of custody, but the judge interrupted, saying he wanted to speak privately with Allie and invited her to his office for lunch. Despite Linda's objections, the judge firmly denied her request, ensuring Allie's safety through a court official. In his office, the judge greeted Allie warmly, encouraging her to relax, though she remained respectful and formal. Their conversation started casually, with the judge gauging Allie's maturity, which impressed him. When they discussed custody, the judge explained that the mother usually gets custody and asked Allie how she felt about that. Allie firmly stated that this traditional approach didn't account for everything that had happened and wasn't what she believed was best. She explained that she belonged with her father, citing their close relationship and the emotional harm her mother caused. When the judge noted that her mother might need her too, Allie clarified that her stance wasn't about revenge, but about what was right for her and her father. She also mentioned that in 3 months she could choose where to live, and if forced to stay with her mother now, she would return to court to change the arrangement. She stressed that staying with her mother would only worsen the situation, and hinted she would find ways to be with her father regardless of the court's decision. The judge, intrigued by Allie's maturity, jokingly asked if she had considered becoming a lawyer. Allie shared that she planned to assist on a paralegal team next summer. The judge complimented her and reassured her that he would make his decision soon. Allie responded confidently, hoping she would still like the judge after his ruling. They shared a light-hearted moment before the judge escorted her back to her father. They smiled, shook hands, and parted ways. When Allie found her father, she told him she felt the meeting had gone well. Soon they would know for sure. When court resumed, the judge said, "I had a good conversation with Allie. Both parents should be proud of her. She presented her thoughts calmly and professionally, and I considered them in my decision." As the judge prepared to continue, Linda abruptly interrupted, urging her lawyer to speak up. The judge, clearly annoyed, banged his gavel. "Counselor, is there an issue?" he demanded. "Apologies, Your Honor," the lawyer responded. "My client has informed me of a matter that might impact your decision." "Go ahead," the judge said sternly. but it better be important. The lawyer took a breath. Mrs. Pearson believes there's a possibility that Mr. David Pearson isn't Allie's biological father. This could affect his custody claim. The judge's expression remained firm. Counselor, this is irrelevant under Pennsylvania custody law, and you should know that. But for clarity, Mrs. Pearson, do you have any evidence? He asked, turning to Linda. Not yet, Your Honor, Linda admitted, her voice subdued. Her attorney then requested a stay for a DNA test. Dave glanced at Allie, who smiled knowingly. His lawyer stood and replied, Your Honor, we anticipated this, and have certified DNA test results proving Mr. David Pearson is indeed Allie's father. He handed the documents to the court and Linda's attorney. Thank you, Counselor Hall. This is a relief for father and daughter. The motion for a stay is denied. Linda broke down in tears as her attorney tried to comfort her. Judge Lawson continued, While primary custody usually goes to the mother, I believe it's in everyone's best interest to honor Allie's wishes and grant Mr. Pearson's petition. Mrs. Pearson, it saddens me to see this family torn apart. He then delivered the final ruling. The divorce is granted, with a final judgment in 6 to 8 weeks. Court is adjourned. Allie rushed to her father, hugging him tightly as they left the courtroom. Linda, with anger in her eyes, approached them. You won. Are you happy now? She asked Dave bitterly. He responded softly, What's happening to you, Linda? No one won today. We all lost. Go home, and we'll talk later. Linda collapsed onto a bench, her lawyer trying to console her as she muttered, But I love you. This isn't right. Dave heard her but continued walking, holding Allie close. In the following weeks, the fallout from Rich and Linda's actions concluded. Rich pleaded guilty to avoid trial and a long prison sentence. He disclosed hidden assets and agreed to serve 8 years in federal prison. Linda found a job 25 miles away and bought a townhouse with funds from Dave, close enough to see Allie but far from former friends who no longer welcomed her. Dave focused on restructuring his business. Debbie excelled in sales, securing large orders from new clients and retaining most involved in the bribery scandal. Tammy supported her perfectly, ensuring smooth operations. Dave planned to expand the sales team, with Debbie as the likely leader. As for his personal life, Dave showed little interest in dating, despite encouragement from friends and Allie. Women from church seemed eager to catch his attention, but he wasn't in a rush. He missed Linda more than expected, but didn't dwell on it. When he thought about the future, only one woman crossed his mind. One Wednesday morning, months after the judge's ruling, Hannah walked into Dave's office with the mail. Hey, boss. Looks like the divorce papers arrived. Dave opened the envelope. Yep, right on time. 7 weeks later, I'm officially a free man. How do you feel about that? Dave paused. It's a mix: sadness, happiness, relief, and anxiety. Mostly I feel anticipation. What Linda and I had was special, and now that it's over, I want to find that special feeling again. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I do, Hannah replied with a half smile, wondering if this was the right moment. She started to leave but hesitated at the door, then quietly confessed, Dave, I want something special too. I've been afraid to say this, but I love you. I've loved you since the day you interviewed me. You don't have to respond now, but if you're interested, ask me out when you're ready. My answer will be yes. Dave moved behind her and gently wrapped his arms around her, kissed her neck, and whispered, Dinner tonight? Still in his arms, she turned to see his smile and sparkling eyes. My place at 6, she suggested. I'll cook and wear something casual. Her wide smile lit up her face. The bottle of wine and lasagna quickly disappeared as dinner became an afterthought. Their deep friendship blossomed into something more, and Hannah whispered to Dave that she wanted to be with him. Dave smiled and told her that he could think of plenty of reasons for that. She playfully pulled away, with mischief in her eyes, and demanded all those reasons immediately. Dave eagerly agreed, ready to take her to the bedroom. For the next 2 weeks, Dave and Hannah spent every night together after romantic dinners at her house. One evening, Dave whispered that it was time, and without hesitation, he carried her to the bedroom, feeling his life fall into perfect harmony. Later, Dave told Hannah he was done holding back. He confessed his love for her, saying he never wanted their relationship to end. Hannah smiled, assuring him they had each other, and if he was certain, she wanted them to never part. Dave jokingly remarked that it might make walking difficult, but he was ready. Hannah teased him, calling him a smartass, but clarified she knew what he meant. Dave then acknowledged that while others might think they were moving too fast, he didn't care. Hannah agreed, saying she'd lived with these feelings for 7 years, and it felt right to her, too. 6 months later, they married at their church, celebrating with a casual pig roast in their backyard. With 200 guests, children enjoyed the pool and entertainment, while adults danced and relaxed under a marquee. A small band played, and everyone had plenty to celebrate. Some were surprised by how quickly they married, especially since Hannah was 8 years younger than Dave. The explanation was simple. They knew they had found the right partner. Plus, Hannah was 3 months pregnant, and at 30, they planned to have more children. As the party wound down, Hannah noticed Linda had arrived and went to greet her. Both women were unsure how the visit would go, but Linda quickly eased the tension by smiling and embracing Hannah. She congratulated her warmly, commenting on the wonderful celebration. Hannah thanked her, joked about Dave's pig roasts, and asked how Linda was doing. Linda admitted she was still working on herself, but was much better than months ago. She assured Hannah that she was genuinely happy for her and Dave. At that moment, Dave joined them and gave Linda a warm hug, expressing his gladness she had come, though he wished she had arrived earlier. Linda explained she didn't want to be the ex who stole attention, but reiterated she was happy for them. Dave thanked her and asked if she was ready for Allie to spend 3 weeks with her while he and Hannah were on their honeymoon. Linda replied that she was looking forward to it, though she hoped Allie wouldn't dread it too much. Linda mentioned that Allie felt guilty about some things, but reassured Dave they would be fine. Dave chuckled and asked if Linda was going to meet his emotional support animal, which puzzled her. She asked if he still had Banjo, and Dave laughed, saying Banjo would be with Allie. He clarified that he meant the pig they roasted and invited her to grab a plate. Any lingering tension dissolved as Hannah and Linda laughed, joking about the idea of throwing Dave into the pool. No two divorces or breakups are alike. People react differently when life falls apart. After discovering Linda's affair, Dave doubted he'd ever find happiness again. Allie mourned the loss of her family, and Hannah feared she'd either live without love or settle for less. They were all broken, yet in the end, Dave, Hannah, and Allie found greater joy than before. Though everything fell apart, they hoped the same healing for Linda and Sonia. Only time would tell. 10 years later, the pastor asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" Dave firmly replied, "Her mother and I." He then placed Allie's hand in her groom's, Nathan Lawson, the grandson of Judge Stanley Lawson. Dave joined Hannah, who was shedding happy tears. Linda sat nearby with her fiancé. While Hannah and Linda had rekindled their friendship, Dave kept his distance from his ex-wife, though he no longer felt the need to avoid her. His love for Hannah and their 3 children had healed past wounds. As Dave sat down, Hannah whispered, "Nice touch, Mr. Pearson. Mothers, plural." Dave smiled, proud of his 10-year-old daughter Sarah, Allie's maid of honor. His youngest, Jenna, was the flower girl, and little Dave Jr., now 3, was the ring bearer. He quietly basked in love and pride, feeling deeply grateful. Allie had graduated top of her class from Temple University Law School, where she met and fell in love with Nate. As they dated, Dave and Judge Lawson became close friends, making the blending of their families smooth. Nate focused on criminal law, joining Bill Hardwick's office, while Allie pursued family law with Angela Hall's team. Dave's business changes exceeded expectations, and at 48, he and Hannah planned to retire when he turned 55. Though not a billionaire, his financial planning made their goals achievable. Sonia remarried a wonderful man who managed the Eastern Territory of a pump company Dave's business represented. Together with her 2 boys from Rich, they now had a 4-year-old daughter. Dave's parents had retired and were enjoying good health, passing Sunday family dinners to Dave and Hannah. 3 months after Allie's wedding, Dave's father broke a promise and brought up Rich. He informed Dave that Rich was leaving next week and wanted to see the family before he left. Dave admitted he had considered reaching out since Rich's release from prison and mentioned hearing that Rich had joined a missionary group. Dave's father confirmed this, explaining that Rich was going to Tanzania as a water purification specialist after connecting with a prison ministry. Dave agreed to the visit, but warned that Sonia and her family might not like it. His father reassured him that they were fine with it, as Rich had already visited them. Dave was surprised since Sonia hadn't mentioned it, but his father reminded him that Dave had made it clear he didn't want anything to do with Rich. Dave acknowledged this and asked what his father thought of Rich now. His father reflected, admitting that Rich's actions had felt like a personal attack, and it hurt deeply. He said, if not for Allie, he didn't know how he would have coped. Dave agreed they had stayed strong through it all. His father then shared that Rich had always felt like an outsider in the family and saw Dave as the perfect son he couldn't compete with, even though they had never shown favoritism. After some reflection, Dave decided he owed it to both of them to talk and clear the air. His father was relieved, knowing Dave would see it that way. Dave shared how he recently felt overwhelmed with joy and peace, thinking about how things had turned out after the chaos of 10 years ago. He noted how Sonia had remarried, Rich's stolen money was recovered, and his business had thrived. When his father asked if Dave was saying that what Rich did ended up being a blessing, Dave admitted that, in some ways, it had, though the end of his marriage to Linda was a tragic loss. However, he expressed deep love for Hannah and wouldn't trade her for anything. His father asked if Dave loved Hannah more than Linda. Dave explained that he loved Hannah differently, but just as strongly, if not more. He still had feelings for Linda, but they weren't the same as before. What mattered now was his commitment to Hannah. His father was reassured, but then asked how Dave felt about Rich. Dave admitted that while he hated what Rich had done, he was strangely grateful for how things turned out. Rich had paid with over 8 years of his life, so Dave no longer felt anger or a desire for revenge. He still loved Rich because he was his brother, but he would never trust him the same way again. His father admired Dave's perspective, acknowledging that it wasn't easy to find positives in such a situation. Dave reflected on how everyone involved, except perhaps Linda, had ended up in a better place. Sonia was happier, his business was thriving, and his marriage to Hannah and their 3 kids brought him immense joy. Even Rich had found a better version of himself through prison and faith. His father called Dave an optimist, and Dave responded by asking if that was a bad thing. His father expressed concern, recalling how broken Dave had been. Dave agreed, but shared how he eventually realized that what Rich had done was like shattering prized china, and with God's help he had picked up the pieces to create something even more beautiful. His father asked if Dave was saying that what was broken was now better than ever, and Dave affirmed that it was. His father expressed pride in how Dave had turned life's challenges into something amazing. Dave expressed gratitude for the support he had received from his father, Hannah, and Allie, acknowledging that he couldn't have done it alone. His father reassured him that what he had built was truly special, and expressed his gladness to have lived to see it. Dave, content, shared that he was glad his father had lived to see it too, and that he believed Rich would be glad to see how things had turned out. He felt it was time to talk to Rich and finally move on from the past. His father agreed, confident that Dave would handle it well. Feeling ready for whatever came next, Dave reflected that while the past had shaped him, it didn't define him. He had found a new future filled with love, hope, and the promise of something even better, and for the first time in a long while, he felt truly at peace.